Smoke rises over the valley as Captain Elena Ward powers up her battered Black Hawk, the one everyone said was finished. Engines groan, rotors scream, but she grips the controls anyway. Tonight, she's flying through fire, or not returning at all. If you believe courage is flying through the fire when everyone else turns back, hit like, subscribe, and stay with us for more true stories of grit, duty, and missions that refuse to break. Rain drummed on the hangar roof, steady and cold. The air smelled of fuel and wet metal. Captain Elena Ward stood under the humming lights, eyes fixed on the dark shape of Black Hawk number 217, her helicopter, her ghost. The bird sat half disassembled, panels open like scars. Mechanics moved around it, muttering, tools clinking. One of them shook his head. Torque sensors still off. This thing's not airworthy. Elena didn't answer. She just ran her hand along the scratched fuselage, tracing the faded numbers, 217. The last mission had ended in fire, a rescue that never made it home. 3 soldiers gone. Her crew blamed luck. She blamed herself. Footsteps echoed behind her. Major Harlow's voice cut through the rain. Still standing here, Ward? She didn't turn. Just checking the maintenance progress. You're not assigned to that bird anymore, he said. Engineering's got it. Elena faced him. It's not about paperwork, sir. It's about readiness. Readiness? Harlow's tone hardened. You were grounded for a reason. You disobeyed altitude protocol and cost lives. I followed my judgment, she said quietly. It was either break altitude or lose them all. And you lost them anyway. His words hit like cold steel. For a moment, only the rain spoke. Then a runner came in from the comms tent, breathless. Sir, urgent update from Ops. SEAL Team Bravo's pinned down near the border. They need extraction before sunrise. Harlow took the report, scanning it fast. His brow tightened. No one's close enough. The nearest Black Hawk isn't mission ready. Elena's eyes flicked toward number 217. She can make it. Harlow looked up sharply. That helicopter barely passed diagnostics. She's scrap. She just needs one more flight, Elena said. I'll take her. You? His disbelief was open. You've flown your last risk, Ward. Elena stepped closer, voice low but steady. With respect, sir, this isn't about risk. It's about duty. They won't last till morning. Harlow studied her, the pilot who once made impossible landings, now a shadow of herself. He saw the fire still in her eyes and hated that it reminded him of the young pilot she used to be. He sighed, heavy. You really think she'll hold together? Elena glanced back at the Black Hawk, rain dripping down her flight suit. She always has. Diaz, the crew chief, called from under the fuselage. Ma'am, this bird's been waiting for you to come back anyway. Harlow shook his head. You're both insane. But his tone softened. You've got until 0400. If she's not flight ready by then, I pull the plug. Understood? Elena nodded. Understood. As he left, she climbed up into the cockpit, fingers brushing the worn controls. The seat creaked, familiar, alive. She whispered to the machine like an old friend. Looks like we're not done yet. Outside, thunder rolled across the base, and the hangar lights flickered, as if the storm itself held its breath. Dawn hadn't broken yet. The floodlights around the hangar threw long shadows across the wet tarmac. The air was thick with fuel fumes and the buzz of generators. Elena Ward walked toward her helicopter, helmet under her arm. Ghost Hawk looked worse in the light, scorched panels, patched armor, bullet dents sealed with uneven paint. But she still had shape, still had presence. Sergeant Diaz crawled out from under the fuselage, wiping grease off his hands. Morning, Captain. She's about 80% flight ready. Elena raised an eyebrow. 80? He smirked. Which means 20% might try to kill us. That's better odds than last time, she said, climbing onto the skid. Inside, the cockpit smelled like dust, oil, and memory. The cracked console lights blinked weakly as she powered up the systems. A faint hum filled the air, followed by the deep, steady beat of the rotors winding up. Lieutenant Riley Ames, young and tense, climbed into the co-pilot's seat. His hands trembled as he adjusted his headset. "Ma'am, engineering said we should wait for clearance on the secondary hydraulics." "We don't have time," Elena said, checking the gauges. "Run your side checks." He hesitated, glancing at the warning lights. "I don't want to be the guy flying a ghost into a storm." Elena's lips curved just slightly. "It's not a storm, Lieutenant. Just fire." Diaz's voice came through the intercom from the back. "Fuel tank's at 85%. Torque limiter's still touchy, don't push her past 75 on the climb." "Copy," Elena said. She reached out and touched the worn metal between the controls, fingers brushing a small burn mark near the throttle. The same mark she'd made during the last mission. Quietly, she whispered, "You and me again, girl. One more flight." Ames looked over, half a smile breaking his worry. "You talk to the aircraft?" "Only the ones that listen." Outside, the first drops of rain started to fall again, soft against the canopy. The base loudspeakers crackled, distant orders echoing across the airfield. "Ward, ops here," came Harlow's voice through comms. "Report status." Elena pressed the mic. "Ghost Hawk is flight capable." "Barely." There was a pause. Then Harlow replied, "Good enough for you, I guess." She caught the dry edge in his tone but let it pass. "We'll be wheels up in 10. As she ran through the final checklist, Ames exhaled slowly. "You really trust this thing to hold together?" Elena kept her eyes on the gauges. "She's been through worse." "So have I." Diaz climbed aboard, locking the side hatch. "Everything's as patched as it'll get. Let's hope luck counts as armor." "Luck's just preparation with better timing," Elena said, flicking the last switch. The engine roared to life, filling the hangar with a deep, trembling vibration. The Black Hawk shuddered, the rotors beginning to spin. Dust lifted off the ground, swirling like smoke around the landing gear, but the helicopter stayed rooted, waiting. Elena's gloved hand rested on the throttle, steady. "Hold her there," she said softly. "We take off when the word comes." Ames looked out through the canopy at the rain streaking under the floodlights. The storm of dawn was near, and somewhere beyond it, a team waited for rescue. The hum of the Ghost Hawk deepened, alive and ready, but still grounded, like its pilot, waiting for the call that would test them both. The operations tent smelled of coffee, sweat, and rain-soaked canvas. Maps covered the main table, layers of red marks, arrows, and small black X's showing danger zones. The low hum of generators filled the silence between short, tense radio bursts. Major Harlow stood at the center, arms crossed. His eyes stayed on the map but his voice carried weight. "We've got a situation. SEAL Team Bravo is pinned near Grid Delta 7. They're surrounded on 3 sides." Elena stepped closer, scanning the terrain printouts. "Any air cover?" "None available. Weather's grounding half the fleet." "Then why not wait it out?" she asked. "Because they'll be dead by dawn," Harlow said flatly. A moment passed. The tent flap opened, letting in cold air and a tall man in desert gear. Chief Mason Cole, the SEAL team leader waiting for pickup. His face was unreadable, the kind that carried too much experience. He looked at Elena, eyes sharp but tired. "You're the pilot?" "Yes, sir." He studied her for a long second, then said, "I don't need a miracle. I need reliability." Elena didn't flinch. "Then let's make her reliable." Cole gave a short nod, but didn't smile. He turned back to Harlow. "What's the plan?" Harlow tapped a point on the map. "Bravo's here, near the ridge line. The only approach is through this canyon." His finger traced a thin line through a shaded valley. "Problem is, it's full of anti-air nests. We counted at least 6. Diaz leaned over her shoulder, frowning. 6? That's a death trap. Harlow ignored the comment. Visibility's near zero after 0300. Wind's picking up from the east. You'll be flying blind most of the way. Elena took a breath, her gaze following the route. The map was a mess of red. She could almost hear the gunfire in her head, the shouts, the alarms. Extraction window, she asked. 10 minutes tops, Harlow said. No margin for delay. Cole added, we'll have wounded. I'll need the rear compartment cleared for stretchers. Done, Elena said. Diaz will handle it. Diaz nodded. I'll strip down the rear rack and rig quick ties. Ames, standing near the radar monitor, finally spoke. Sir, this route puts us inside effective range for RPGs for at least 3 clicks. Harlow shot him a look. You got a better option, Lieutenant? Ames shook his head. No, sir. Elena rolled up the map and tucked it under her arm. Then we don't waste time discussing what we can't change. Harlow exhaled, rubbing his temple. You're really going through with this? She met his eyes. You gave me until 0400. I'm using it. Cole watched her with quiet scrutiny, as if measuring the truth in her tone. Finally, he said, if you get us out, you'll have every SEAL in the unit buying you a drink. Elena's answer was calm. Just make sure you're there to buy it. As the briefing ended, thunder rolled outside again. The map lights dimmed. For a moment, the tent was silent except for the rain, the sound of time running out. Before dawn, the hangar doors rolled open, letting in the cold gray light of early morning. The tarmac was wet from overnight rain, mist curling around the parked helicopters. Ghost Hawk's rotors began to spin, a low, vibrating roar that shook the ground beneath Elena's boots. Rotors stable. You ready, Captain? Diaz called from the rear. Elena strapped in, helmet snug, fingers brushing over the worn controls. Always, she said. Ames climbed into the co-pilot seat, his face pale in the soft glow of the instrument panel. Ma'am, weather's worse than the report said. Low clouds, gusts picking up. We might have to abort. Elena didn't look at him. She flipped switches, checked gauges, listened to the hum of the engines. We're not aborting, she said, voice calm. We have a window. We take it. The rotors spun faster, the vibration building. With a subtle lift on the collective, the helicopter rose, hovering above the slick tarmac. Mist swirled around the skids, drifting into the air like smoke. As they lifted higher, the valley below came into view, shadowed ridges, jagged rock faces, and faint traces of movement in the trees. The radar pinged repeatedly. Every light that blinked red meant a potential threat. Surface-to-air positions, anti-air guns, and small arms. Ames leaned forward, eyes wide. Captain, we're inside effective range for at least 3 enemy nests. Altitude's dropping fast, we're below flight minimums. Elena adjusted the cyclic, lowering Ghost Hawk even further. The rotor wash kicked up dust and fog from the cliffs. That's how we stay alive, she said, her jaw tight. We fly low, stay under their line of sight. Through the canopy, she saw the sharp edges of the canyon walls rushing by. Fog clung to the ridges. One wrong move and the skids would scrape the rocks. The hum of the engines was steady, but every vibration told her where the helicopter leaned, where the wind pushed. Her instincts guided her more than the instruments. Diaz's voice crackled in her headset. Tail rotors responding slow. Winds shifting west. Compensating, she said, banking slightly, feeling the subtle tug of the gusts. Ames swallowed hard, hands tight on his side controls. Ma'am. I've never seen anyone fly like this. Elena didn't answer. She felt the bird breathe beneath her, the vibrations in the pedals, the subtle sway of the fuselage. Every control input was precise, every motion calculated. She threaded the helicopter through the jagged cliffs, dipping low into valleys, rising on the ridges just enough to avoid radar. A faint streak of tracer fire whipped past the canopy, dust and rock erupting in small explosions nearby. Elena's heart didn't race, it focused. She felt the pattern, the rhythm of threats, and moved with them. Steady, she muttered to herself. Just a little further. The valley stretched ahead, narrow, shadowed, dangerous. Ghost Hawk leaned into the wind, following its pilot's will. In that moment, the night, the mist, and the looming cliffs all became part of her, a dance of survival. Hold on, she said softly, more to herself than to anyone else. The inferno awaited ahead. The night exploded around them. Shadows of trees flashed as tracer rounds tore through the canyon air. The sharp rat-a-tat of automatic fire echoed off rock walls, mixing with the deep hum of Ghost Hawk's engines. Sparks flickered on the ground below where rounds struck dirt and stone. Captain! Engine torque spiking, limiters giving out. Diaz's voice crackled in her headset. Elena's hands gripped the cyclic and collective, moving faster than thought. The helicopter shuddered violently, alarms screaming. Warning lights painted the cockpit in harsh red. Dust and smoke whipped against the canopy. Hold her steady. Ames shouted, white-knuckled, gripping his console. We're getting too close. Elena's eyes scanned the instruments, then back to the narrow canyon. The tracers streaked past, some too close for comfort. She felt every vibration, every pull of the wind. Her fingers worked the manual override, feathering the rotors, balancing weight. Every movement of the bird was instinct. Every tilt, every adjustment a conversation with the machine. Ames's voice came again, awed. How are you even holding her steady? Elena didn't look at him. Her eyes stayed forward, tracking the canyon twists, the jagged ridges. She remembers, she said quietly. A tracer round hit a rock just a few feet below, sending shards and dust into the air. The shockwave rattled the helicopter violently, alarms blaring, but the engines held. Elena leaned into the controls, subtle movements countering the jolt. The tail swayed dangerously, then corrected under her hands. Diaz muttered under his breath. Never seen torque swing like this in one flight. I've flown worse, Elena said calmly, though her chest thumped. She flicked a switch, rerouted power, adjusted fuel flow. Ghost Hawk groaned under the strain but responded. Ames watched her in disbelief, hands gripping the panel. She's alive. And she's keeping us alive. Elena didn't answer. Her focus was total. She felt the helicopter like a living thing, wings, rotors, engine, and skin, all moving together. The canyon narrowed. Smoke from distant fires twisted through the rocks, creating phantom obstacles. Tracer fire cut through it, painting the path with deadly lines. Another near miss shook the air, dirt and small stones sprang against the skids. The vibration ran up into the pedals, into her arms, into her chest. Yet Elena moved as if in a rhythm, countering each shock with instinctive inputs, adjusting tilt, collective, and rudder in near silence. Ames swallowed hard. I don't know what I'm looking at. It's like she's flying herself. Elena gave a small, tight smile. Not herself. Us. Memory and instinct. Machine and pilot, fused. That's the difference. The canyon opened slightly, giving a brief stretch of space. Elena's eyes flicked to the radar, multiple heat signatures still closing in. She adjusted altitude just enough, Ghost Hawk shuddering but holding. Keep breathing, she muttered to herself. Just a little further. Stay with me, girl. The rotors hummed a low, steady note now, blending with the wind and distant gunfire. Pilot and machine moved as one, threading through chaos, alive, and ready for whatever the valley would throw next. The valley stretched ahead like a dark mouth waiting to swallow them. Shadows of jagged ridges loomed under the pre-dawn light, and smoke from distant fires curled through the rocks. Radar blipped continuously, every red dot a potential threat. Elena tightened her grip on the cyclic, eyes scanning both the instruments and the terrain ahead. Ghost Hawk's engines hummed under strain, and the vibrations ran up her arms and into her chest. Captain, Ames said, voice tight, the coordinates just shifted. Bravo's reporting they're surrounded tighter than we thought. Anti-air coverage is increasing. This is bad. Elena flicked a glance at the small screen showing the SEAL's position. The red markers clustered dangerously close to enemy positions. We knew it wouldn't be easy, she muttered, adjusting altitude slightly. A burst of gunfire erupted from the canyon below, tracer rounds painting streaks across the dark rock. The helicopter shook from a near miss, dust and stones spraying along the skids. Diaz's voice came through the headset, calm but alert. Torque spikes again, limiters at its edge. We need to be careful. Careful? Ames repeated, swallowing hard. We're barely above their line of fire. A crackling alert came over comms. Abort mission. Repeat, abort. Command says pull back. Elena's jaw tightened. Her eyes scanned the chaotic map, the SEALs pinned on the ridge. They had no cover left, and the clock was running out. On comms, Cole's voice was strained, almost desperate. Captain. We can hold 5 minutes, maybe. It's all we've got. Elena's fingers hovered over the throttle, instinct and training screaming in tandem. She knew the rules, knew the weight of her decision. Defying command could cost her career, even a court-martial. But leaving the SEALs was not an option. She exhaled slowly, voice firm. Then I'm coming down in 4. Ames blinked at her, pale. You're really going to do that? I've flown under worse conditions, Elena said evenly, eyes on the canyon floor. Time to make this bird earn her stripes. Diaz muttered from the rear. She's got it in her. Ghost Hawk knows what to do. The helicopter tilted slightly, banking toward the narrow canyon entrance. Elena adjusted the collective and cyclic in perfect rhythm, every movement calculated. Dust and smoke whipped past the cockpit, tracer fire lighting up the rocks like fireflies. Ames's hands gripped the controls instinctively, ready to assist, though he trusted her judgment implicitly. I don't like it, but I've never seen anyone fly like this. Elena's eyes remained sharp, flicking between radar pings, canyon walls, and the SEAL's position. Stay focused. Keep your eyes open. We only get one shot at this. The valley closed in around them. Every vibration, every alert, every distant blast became part of the rhythm, the dance between pilot and machine, danger and instinct. For minutes, she whispered to herself, and we bring them home. The decision was made. Rules bent, risks calculated, but leadership demanded no hesitation. Ghost Hawk responded like a loyal partner, shivering under strain yet ready, carrying them into the inferno waiting below. The landing zone opened before them, narrow and rocky, shadows of ridges pressing in from all sides. Smoke curled up from burning debris, sand whipped through the air, and tracer fire streaked across the pale light of dawn. Elena eased Ghost Hawk down, skids scraping against loose rocks. Each vibration shivered up her arms as she fought to keep the helicopter steady. Dust stung her eyes, but she didn't blink. Brace yourself. Ames shouted, gripping the controls as a gust hit from the canyon side. Below, SEAL Team Bravo sprinted toward the helicopter. One limped heavily, blood soaking through his uniform. 2 others fired back at the enemy, keeping their pursuers at bay. 30 seconds, Chief. That's all you get, Elena said, voice calm over the headset. Cole shouted back, urgency in his voice. We're moving. A mortar landed nearby, the ground erupting in sand and rock. The explosion tipped Ghost Hawk sideways, throwing Elena against her harness. Her hands slammed instinctively on the cyclic and collective, correcting the tilt in a fluid motion. Alarms blared inside the cockpit, but her focus never wavered. Diaz's voice came over the comms, steady despite the chaos. Tail rotors responding. I've got gear stabilized, keep it steady. Elena's eyes darted from the rapidly approaching SEALs to the surrounding canyon walls. Keep it smooth, Diaz. Almost there. Cole helped the wounded soldier onto a stretcher while shouting orders to the others. Load fast. Move. Move. Ames's hands trembled slightly as he adjusted the hydraulics. Captain, they're still under fire. We can't hold long. Elena didn't flinch. She tapped a series of switches, routing auxiliary power, balancing weight between forward and aft. The rotors hummed a low, controlled growl as Ghost Hawk leaned into the motion, responding as if alive. Dust and tracer fire whipped past the cockpit, sand scraping along the canopy. A bullet struck a panel nearby, shivering the metal with a high-pitched ping. Got him! Cole yelled as the last SEAL jumped aboard. Elena exhaled, the first slow breath she had allowed herself since approaching the valley. Hold tight, she said, voice low but firm. We're leaving now. Diaz closed the rear hatch, slamming it with a resounding clang. All aboard. Let's get the hell out of here. The rotors picked up speed, lifting Ghost Hawk off the ground just enough to clear rocks and sand. The canyon walls loomed close, shadows flickering in the dim morning light. Every vibration, every shudder, was a reminder of danger. Ames glanced at her in awe. Captain, you make this look easy. Elena's jaw tightened into a small, grim smile. Easy isn't part of the plan. Alive is. Above the roar of the engines, she could hear Cole directing fire from the rear compartment, shouting at his team to keep them safe. Elena leaned into the collective, guiding the helicopter away from the mortars and bullets, Ghost Hawk responding perfectly to every subtle movement. For a brief moment, amid chaos and danger, pilot, machine, and men moved as one, a single heartbeat carrying them through fire. The last SEAL clambered aboard, dragging a wounded comrade up the ramp. Dust and smoke still swirled around the landing zone, tracer fire slicing the gray morning air. Elena's hands were steady on the cyclic and collective, eyes scanning the canyon as Ghost Hawk lifted slowly from the jagged rocks. Clear! Diaz shouted from the rear. Suddenly, a bright streak erupted from below, and RPG slammed into the tail. The impact shook the helicopter violently, throwing sand and debris into the air. Red warning lights bloomed across the cockpit, alarms wailing a high-pitched scream that cut through the roar of the engines. Ames's voice screamed over the comms. Captain! We're losing lift. We're going down. Elena's teeth clenched. Her hands moved without hesitation, forcing the cyclic forward, adjusting the collective, feathering the rotors manually. The bird shuddered under the strain, but she felt its response, the familiar hum of resistance, the push and pull of metal and air, as if Ghost Hawk itself were fighting alongside her. Cole yelled from the rear compartment, voice sharp with panic. We're not gonna make it. Watch me. Elena barked, voice hard and steady. Dust, smoke, and tracer rounds whipped past the cockpit as she forced the helicopter into a climb. Hydraulics groaned, then failed in part, leaving some controls stiff and sluggish. Every vibration told her what the bird could handle, and she adapted instantly, balancing weight, shifting power, guiding Ghost Hawk with instinct as much as skill. Ames's hands trembled on his side controls. She's fighting for us. I've never seen. Focus! Elena snapped, her eyes flicking between radar pings, warning lights, and the cliffs racing past. She leaned forward, pushing the throttle just enough to keep altitude. Every second counted, every adjustment could mean life or death. Another explosion rocked the valley below, sending a plume of smoke curling toward them. Ghost Hawk tilted dangerously, the tail swinging slightly. Elena felt it shudder under her touch but responded immediately, nudging the collective, easing the cyclic, letting the machine flow with her movements. The wounded SEAL groaned from the rear, Cole shouting instructions to keep him stable. Elena's voice cut through the chaos, calm but commanding. Stay with me. Hold tight. We get out together. Red lights blinked across the console, hydraulic warnings, torque spikes, and engine alerts, but Ghost Hawk didn't falter. It leaned into her hands, every rotor, every panel, every ounce of metal moving as one with her. The canyon narrowed, rocks flashing past the canopy. Elena felt sweat on her brow, heart pounding, but her focus never wavered. She could hear the whine of the RPG's distant impacts, the shouts of her crew, and the distant echoes of gunfire, all part of the rhythm she moved through. Almost there, she muttered under her breath. Come on, girl. Hold together. Slowly, imperceptibly, Ghost Hawk gained stability. The bird climbed, engines screaming in defiance, lifting them away from the valley floor. Elena's eyes remained sharp, hands steady, guiding them through fire, smoke, and death, proving that a broken machine and a determined pilot could still carry everyone home. The base lights flickered ahead, cutting through the haze of smoke and dust. The tarmac stretched like a thin promise beneath them, but Ghost Hawk's engines screamed in protest, red warnings flashing across the panels. Power was fading fast. Elena tightened her grip on the cyclic, teeth clenched. We're running low. I'm shutting one engine to preserve thrust. We'll glide the rest. Ames's eyes widened. Shut down an engine? Are you serious? Elena didn't answer. Fingers precise, she cut the auxiliary engine, listening to the hum drop, feeling the weight shift beneath her. Ghost Hawk groaned, a metallic shiver running through the fuselage. Every vibration told her how the bird would respond. Diaz's voice crackled from the rear. AUX hydraulics aren't holding. I'll crank manually, hang on. Elena nodded slightly, focusing on the glide. Smoke from the valley below and burning debris from earlier battles curled around them, twisting and curling like living things. The rotors cut through it, stirring eddies of ash and sand. Speed dropping, Captain. Ames called out, eyes darting across the instruments. We're losing lift. Elena leaned forward, nudging the cyclic to balance, converting every foot of altitude into forward momentum. She could feel the helicopter tilting, the rotors straining, but she didn't panic. Ghost Hawk responded to her touch, trembling but alive. The canyon walls behind them faded, replaced by the flat tarmac ahead. Dust and smoke clung to the fuselage, scratching windows, clogging air intakes. Elena whispered under her breath, almost to the bird itself. Come on, girl, just a little further. Diaz's hand turned the crank faster, sweat dripping from his brow. I've got it. Keep her steady. The ground rushed up. Elena's eyes widened as she judged the angle, timing the descent. Brace for impact, she called, voice firm. Ghost Hawk hit hard. The skid struck the tarmac with a deafening clang, metal screaming against asphalt. Sparks erupted where the rotors scraped loose debris. The helicopter shuddered violently, pitching sideways before Elena wrestled the cyclic, forcing it upright. The rotors ground against the air, tearing through the smoke like wounded wings. Silence followed. Dust hung in the air like smoke from a snuffed candle. Then, slowly, the rotors spun down, groaning but intact, alive. The engines hissed and settled into a low, steady hum. Ames exhaled so hard he stumbled. We made it. Diaz leaned back, wiping soot from his face. Alive. All of us. Damn, alive. Cole's voice came from the rear, calm but exhausted. Everyone okay? Elena kept her hands on the controls for a moment longer, chest heaving, eyes scanning the tarmac. We're okay, she said, voice low. All of us. Outside, the base erupted in movement, medics rushing, crews running toward the downed Black Hawk. But inside, the cockpit was quiet except for the soft hum of the surviving engine, the smell of sweat and smoke, and the steady, shared heartbeat of pilot and machine. Elena let her head drop back against the seat for the first time in what felt like hours. Good job, girl, she whispered, stroking the control panel lightly. Ghost Hawk had carried them home, wounded, battered, and alive, like an angel in the smoke. Everyone's breathing slowed, heavy but steady. For a brief moment, the terror of the valley melted away. They had survived. Together. The hangar doors rumbled open, letting in pale morning light. Crews rushed forward, expecting stretchers and casualties, radios crackling, boots pounding the concrete. Dust and smoke clung to the air, a haze from the valley and their desperate flight. Ghost Hawk settled onto the tarmac with a deep, groaning shudder. The rotors spun down slowly, leaving only a low hum vibrating through the floor. Silence hung heavy, every eye fixed on the helicopter. Then Elena Ward stepped out. Her flight suit was streaked with soot, gloves blackened, hair plastered to her temple. Her face bore the grime of smoke and ash, but her eyes were steady, unshaken. She moved with quiet determination, breathing controlled, each step measured. Diaz ran forward first, face wide with relief. "Captain! You made it!" Elena gave a small nod, brushing dust from her sleeve. "All of us made it," she said, voice calm, measured. She didn't speak of the near misses, the alarms, the shudders of the bird, all of that was understood. From the rear, Cole removed his helmet, sweat and grime marking his face. He saluted her first, sharp and precise. No words, just respect and acknowledgement in the crisp motion. Harlow followed, slower, deliberate, arms folded behind his back. His eyes studied Elena, noting the soot, the fatigue, the quiet fire in her expression. At last, he raised his hand in a salute, reluctant, proud. No words passed, the look between them said everything. A moment of silent respect for what had been survived, for skill and courage tested under impossible odds. Elena's eyes drifted back to Ghost Hawk. The helicopter was battered, panels dented, bullet holes marking its sides, rotor tips nicked and worn. Smoke stains curled along its frame. But it was intact, alive, a survivor like its pilot. Diaz muttered softly, a mixture of awe and relief, she kept us all alive. Elena's lips pressed together in a faint, tight smile. "We just kept her moving," she said quietly. Her voice was steady, but her gaze lingered on the bird, worn and scarred, yet unbroken. The hangar began to hum with activity, crews checking panels, medics moving cautiously, voices rising in cautious relief. But the focus remained, for a moment longer, on the pilot in the helicopter. As the dust settled, the morning light fell across the side of Ghost Hawk. The soot-streaked patch on the fuselage glowed faintly in the sun, a mark of survival, resilience, and the fire they had endured together. Elena's voice came in as a quiet internal thought, or reflection rather than speech. "They said she wouldn't make it. Maybe she didn't. But she carried us through the fire." No one spoke over the moment. The rotors had stopped, the alarms were silent, but the weight of survival, skill, and loyalty hung in the air. Cole and Harlow lowered their salutes in unison. Elena finally allowed herself to exhale, shoulders loosening, eyes softening. Ghost Hawk stood beside her, battered, scarred, yet alive. The valley, the fire, and the chaos had been survived. Together. The hangar echoed with life returning, but the memory of the night's battle, and the quiet salute and silence, remained etched in every soldier's gaze. If you felt the intensity of Elena and Ghost Hawk's mission, don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more incredible stories of courage and survival. Every click helps us bring these epic missions to life.